So Paula and I had been catching up a little bit, and we started to talk about the merits of Mount Shasta. She has yet to be there, and we were talking about, that kind of acclamation. Because when she started to tell me about it, I thought, well, let's record this for everyone else to hear. For those that have never been there before, here's kind of I can tell you from my perspective what it's been like now, and you can hear from Paula, whose expectations on what drew her there. That's what I really want to have other people hear. Because when you started to tell, oh man, there's so many synchronicities between what drew me there, it's the same thing with you. So we are going to be some of those that are going to draw more people to the area just by listening to us talk about it and the magic that we know that happens there, and the things beyond physicality that we know that's there and we can put our fingers on. We have plenty of evidence of now. It's time for other people to hear that too. So I'm going to shut up now and let you begin to talk about what's driving you there.
Oh, yeah. Well, I can't really explain it well. I had a little daisy chain synchronicity that kind of took me there with just sitting in meditation and hearing this you know from the song America, what is it, America the Beautiful, where it talks about the purple majesty. And I was like, oh gosh, when you think about that song, I don't even know what a purple majesty is. Is it just like a purple mist that comes in the evening with a fog or whatever? It's like, no, this little message in my head said, no, it's like a flower. It's like a flower. So I looked it up. I'm like, oh, wow, it is a flower. Okay, because it's kind of a decorative plant. And I believe it grows in the Mount Shasta area. Is that correct? It grows in the area there.
Something, something grows there that's purple, violet, whatever you want to call it. When I first got there the first year and I started to hike in the areas that I saw lots of evidence of these little purple colored flowers, and they were like dear to me immediately because
Yeah.
in all of this forest in green and brown, all of a sudden here's this splotch of purple color and these tiny little flowers that definitely get your attention, and it's ground cover in a lot of places.
Wow.
So, you got to wonder whether, Saint Germain walked those places
Saint
and that was what
Germain.
was left in his wake.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Saint Germain, right? With his violet flame.
Yes.
And so then it was kind of like just this musings in my mind while I was meditating was gravitating me uh to the west and took me to California, some town was it displayed it was a flower shop that was using purple majesty in their decorative, and so that was okay. Well, ended up being weed, uh California, where this. And anyway, so it was like, my gosh, I'm being drug over. So then I'm curious. I'm like, okay, where is Mount Shasta? Oh my gosh, it's not only in California, it's like really close to Oregon. Didn't know that. Like, and I feel these pullings now, like, well, look this up and look this up and look this up. And so I'm feeling this gravitational pull. I feel like I am spiritually and emotionally developing myself to physically move myself in that direction, maybe for a visit. Because before this, I'm like, wow, it's so far away. It's in the middle of nowhere. Like, what would be the point? Those sort of 3D thoughts. Like, what's the point of me, going all this way and it's in the middle of nowhere? I don't know anything. And now it's like I'm feeling the pull, which I think a lot of people probably are going to start feeling the pull. Although, folks from Middle Earth, there's portals all throughout the planet. You don't have to
Yes.
be at Mount Shasta. But to your point, I do believe that there's some kind of energy that's there that's unique, and probably, just like Sedona, they talk about an energy there, and
Yes.
various parts of
It's
the planet.
absolutely true.
Energies. Yeah. So I'm feeling a pull, and it's kind of interesting. So I don't know. I'll keep you posted as I'm taking it slow, because I don't want to be like gangbusters. Let's just get on a plane and go. But I'm feeling the pull to develop myself in that direction.
some people go with their impulses like that.
Yeah.
And then there's the others that are more due diligence oriented, evidentiary
Yeah,
oriented.
right.
You know what I'm talking about here? Those are the
Um,
kind of people that want to feel it out. But just as evidence, but what you've been telling us is that all of this research that you're doing is, setting the tone for something. And
yeah,
there's something, why that? You can pick
right.
any freaking topic in the world on something to spend your attention on, and yours has been there. So
Yeah.
there's no coincidence there.
No, nothing random
No.
in the world. Nothing random in the
Mm-mm.
world. And it's interesting. And I'm having an interest in looking at it and like, oh, what are the highways around it? And what's around here? And what's this like? And so it's been very satisfying to look up the information, which is evidence to me that it's what I should be doing because it's enjoyable and fun and takes me to the next daisy chain to look at something else and something else. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. So I feel that there's a pull there. How do you
Well,
feel about
consider this, dude.
it?
You wrote a whole story that led you up to
Oh,
the discovery of Lemurians and
yeah,
inner Earth.
in particular,
Why
Shasta.
wouldn't you feel as though you were
Oh,
drawn to kind of continue your research?
you'd think that that would be the logical next step, but you know me,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. I'm just this vessel that's putting this information out. I don't know if it has anything to do with me,
Well, here's
but
where I can
I'm
give you
feeling
some
more connection.
advice. I give you a perception that, yeah, it's meant for you.
Yeah,
None of this is sent to you for you to tell others. Later, you can share your experiences with your tribe because that's when we really bond, when there's synchronicities in the things that have happened to us. And
yeah.
it's, look, you reached out to me when you reached out to me because of that area and what was there. So,
Mhm.
of course, you want to research it further, and you should. You know what's taking place here energetically on the planet. I repeat that to just kind of set the stage for, what's coming next. And
Sure.
these things that are a little bit beyond our awareness perception now, generally, um, it's tapping us on the shoulder. Like we're here. And now is the time for
Or
you to kind of
poking
grab
the
a
shoulder.
hold of the fact that we are, because you're about to lift yourself into a realm where you can have these conversations with us. And if you want to think of it in more terms of, a physical experience, we'll be able to have communications with those sentient entities in that next level, which, by the way, is around us all the time right now. We just fail to sense them because we're so locked into this density, and that's our only frame of reference. And many of us just refuse to believe that there's anything outside there that we can't put our fingers and hands on. It
Yeah.
was when I finally gave way to that whole idea of thinking and stopped thinking that things couldn't be because I didn't understand. And I went, what if that was true? And every time I did that, some other magic revealed itself to me. And once you get used to those levels of magic and they just feel like, yeah, I know it's true. I just know it. Then it gives you the next level of information because all of this is trying to help humanity evolve to the next level that Earth is in the process of spinning herself to. And it wasn't because, humanity had control over the consciousness of the planet. Those are two very separate things. And Earth is on her way to her next stage of evolution. That's why we feel all the things that are going on. Look at all the strange weather phenomenon going on. When's the last time you heard a hurricane hitting the south of California and about to dump, flood type waters in the Southwest? Just pay attention to those physical changes
Oh,
that are
more than
coming.
that. I'm in Cambridge, Boston area. When have you ever heard of a tornado coming through Boston? We
Yes.
had a tornado warning on Thursday. I never heard of a tornado in Boston before. Right.
It's just watch for all these. If we had experienced these strange patterns before, it would be in our awareness. And that's why when they happen now, it's so out of the norm that we can't help but comment on it. Well, yes, gang, wake up. That's what's happening on the planet. And I, there are times I see things from the next perspective, and I see all the rest of us as, just these little sentient critters crawling on the planet. And when these catastrophes happen, and they're not done happening, it those phenomenon take no account for whatever's in its way.
Yeah.
We know that from the time that the planet was mantled out, that there have been shifts in land masses, huge shifts. When Lemuria was Lemuria and Atlantis was Atlantis, before they broke up, it went into what they broke up into, they were entirely different places on the globe. So there's a difficulty in us trying to figure out where on this globe that we see in our mind with the land masses that remain, how did that ever exist? And we fail to see the beyond that long before our little carbon avatars got here to play out this particular lesson. That stuff's been going on for a long time, as has the civilizations that are in inner earth. There's no question in my mind anymore that Telos was meant to demonstrate a few different things. One, that yes, they're there, and they want us to know that they're there, and they're looking forward to reintegrating with the surface. Two, that Telos isn't the only place in inner Earth. That is when that awareness came to me, and what I could read out of Radu, Cinemara's books, and the Swedish woman whose name I can't pronounce, and then Diane. When you look at all of those elements, and each one of them is referring to kind of the same thing in different languages, when you start to pay attention to all of that at once, there's a reason why all that's being shown now too. The
Right.
last time that there were catastrophes of this level was when Lemuria and Atlantis sank. And where did they go? They went into inner Earth.
Yeah.
So I believe what's being demonstrated to me is a reminder to others whose awareness isn't quite there yet, that we're not done with catastrophes yet. And I hate to be the one that has to say that out loud, but that's actually the truth of the matter. The good news is that your soul is just riding in this thing that was due to wear out in 80 to 100 years anyway. You're going to move on to the next thing. If you choose to evolve to the next stage in New Earth, you're an entirely different being. That light body that you are is going to kick into gear. Your form changes into crystalline, and the whole perspective of how we choose to look at one another and honor the planet and each other as though we're one. Here it is.
Yeah.
The chaos that's still playing out is left because those entities that have been in a position to assume our sovereignty, make poor decisions on our behalf, and not be transparent about it all, those days are gone.
That's for sure.
Some of us just look at all that authority as, how did you get it in the first place? And now politicians who really, at first, when that whole notion of representation came along, that's what they were. They represented all of us. And even if it was a small faction and not everybody agreed that this guy should be the leader, in the end, the leader represented everybody at that table. Everybody.
Right.
We're far from that now.
No, we
And the
are.
leaders that we have don't care about making that work anymore. They're more inclined to point across and point out somebody else's um, problems and what causes them to be whoever they are in their eyes. Um, and it's less solution oriented. They've definitely forgotten that they're there to represent us. And no work is getting done that way. The only thing that we do see is, these hearings that they're having, pointing fingers across the aisle. Well, I couldn't care less about that. What are you doing to improve our lives? Because that's what we sent you there for. And that idea is forgotten.
It has.
So now, year over year, we don't talk about policies. We talk about the money that's being thrown into re-elections.
Yeah,
What the hell
absolutely.
are we doing?
Right,
Well,
right.
that's about to change. And, the people in charge, who granted, are going through lessons of their own. Politicians become politicians so they can learn how to become politicians, which I don't know is a good thing, but
Yeah.
they've gone far beyond representing us. And so when I hear people who want to be in charge of others and their compassion level is zero, they have no business being in charge of anybody else.
No,
I'll
the system
stop
is
there with
unraveled,
that idea. Yes, it is. Anyway, all
unraveled.
that is just evidence of where we're heading, and that the way that the world spins and the crap that we've been going through, um, you know, there's a finite amount of time that that's going to continue. And then Earth spins into a whole new higher frequency that doesn't support those duality lessons anymore. It's not that Earth is done with learning duality, but we do it from the perspective we should have done for a long time. And we see beyond that. We don't hold anybody account. There's no good and bad. There's no one's fault. There's none of that. Everything is a learning lesson. And so we get to see it from that perspective next.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Everything that comes in as a challenge is an opportunity for growth and development out of the challenge. Like, oh, great, here's a challenge. All right, now I need to grow into the solution, right? And I feel like that is why these advanced civilizations are always in harmony, right? They are always in harmony with universal law. They're in harmony with the planet that they live on. And they're in harmony with themselves because they see themselves as powerful beings that can overcome any adversity, right? It's not that the challenge doesn't come. I have a feeling that challenges are always a part of existence, but your approach to it is joyfulness and gratitude. And then you've
Yeah.
come up to the solution. And then before you know it, you've grown into even a more advanced being, right? Whereas we're stuck, we're in a loop. I think the intention for the United States was good, right? The original doctrines were the intention of freedom, even though, we didn't have a free country at the time of the doctrines. Um, but we stagnated and we didn't represent the spirit of the information. And let's face it, a winner take all system, and you pointed this out perfectly, a landslide can be 55% of the vote. That's 45% of the population not represented. How is that a landslide, right? And then here you have somebody representing everybody with the intention of their point of view, and then the power gets to you, and then before you're not presenting, you're not representing anybody but yourself and your opportunity to get reelected. So
Yes.
it's become a mess. It's become, and you know what, and this is, I think you said this too, in a certain way, don't fight against the system that exists. Build a new one to make the old one obsolete. Just throw it out, right?
Yeah.
No sense in fighting
Today's
the old one.
This is more than I've ever talked about this because I don't want to feed it energy. Um, but I think that there still has to be a benchmark that's set for everybody else. So when they're still stuck in the cycle of complaining about politics, well, wait a minute, step back and see it for what it is first. And then when you do, um, if there's something we can do about it, then good, let's put our effort into that. And if there's not, then you got to look past it with the idea that there's something better coming, that
Yes.
we weren't meant to be sovereign beings with free will who gave away power to a small handful of people who now show their ability to be corrupted, and they didn't let anybody down. However, there's still a faction that supports that idea. Now, you ask yourself, how can that be? And I
Mhm.
understand in this density, we all want to be part of something else. And so we choose. But those choices become more limited with labels. So if we are talking about the political world, We understand that. Forget the other little Green Party ramifications. You're a Democrat or you're Republican, and from the get go, you're one or the other. And as time has passed, those have become more like enemy lands. How did that even get to that point? I remember when I was younger in politics, and I was born in the 50s, there was at least some modicum of civility and compromise. And whether you were this or that, the betterment of what was next came along. And then there were those people who got a hold of that kind of power and thought they should never let it go. Look at the aged people that are in Congress. Should they have been there that long? Hell no. I don't want to call out any names of people that are getting ill while they're on the floor. They didn't do us any good by not mentoring who was going to follow, who our next leaders were going to be. They felt as though they had to cling to power, and that's when representatives turned into politicians.
Right.
And we got no use for politicians. And yet here they are. And now that they've convinced us that money drives everything, and when you see the amount of money being spent on campaigns, you identify that with some level of success. Well, that's just bullshit. Because in the end, that Republican Party decided for this particular race that they're going to choose this particular person. You had no input into a slate of people that could have been good for it. And the same is true on the other side. Not taking anything away from the Democratic perspective of seeing things. It's the same game. And the media just loves to taunt us and get our attention by throwing out ideas to plant in our heads. Well, most of them are pure speculation, but they take us down different paths. When I look at polls, I know from being in the business world that I can manipulate a poll to say anything I want it to say. And so does the media. I'm going to stop there with political commentary because I'm speaking from my third density. And man, I got a lot of things to say if I was to speak as a citizen of the United States, but I don't. I'm speaking from a higher entity that sees that for what it is and knows that we're moving to the next thing. And again, when you look at all the physical changes on the earth, how much further away do you think it really is before that next solar flash just changes us electromagnetically into who we're supposed to be next? It's coming. We all know it. And we're doing what we can to prepare ourselves. I know you and I, Dave, Vivian Chave, lots of people that now have had experiences and first came to terms with what it was that happened and then decided that they'd be willing to talk about it. There's more and more of the experiencers coming forward, not channelers that are talking about somebody else and who feel compelled that every Wednesday they need to put something out, whether they have anything relevant or not. Now they've just become an ego-driven talking head, and I don't need that. I really want to talk to people that are genuine. And so I don't spend as much time listening to others as I once did when my journey was young. But I had no frame of reference. And I had to listen to a lot of commentary before my discernment had a chance to kick in and start to sort things out. Had I leaned on what knowledge I had and what how my life had been shaped along the way with its influences, I'd be stuck in a very different place and I'd probably be pissed. I started to talk about, there's a faction that supports, that entity that doesn't seem all that compassionate. And I can understand that why too. If I look at those people and how they've been treated, would they want the government to be torn down, start over? Of course they would. But this isn't the way to go about it. They just found somebody that matches their anger level. And so that's why they're behind it. Not that it's good or bad, they just match that tone. Now, the good news, as I see it, is that maybe 35% of us, maybe. And I don't even think it's that. I think that the Republican influence is about 35% of the overall. If everybody voted their conscience, that's what I feel. And this faction that is supporting the effort to, reelect the former president is a smaller faction of the 35%. Now, if you look at how the media represents that, oh, no, they're even. And not that I'm saying that Biden is a good choice from the other side. There's, I have no confidence in the people that have been placed in those places. And then people want to point at them and hold them accountable. Every time I hear somebody point at Biden to talk about a problem that we have, he didn't create the problem. He is just the focus of your attention. And not that they have any better ideas. Or we'd be hearing those speak up and people would gravitate to that too. But there's just too many things in play now that don't allow us to hear things for what they are. And it's hard for people to hear those things in the first place with information they've never experienced before and a perspective that is foreign to them. Sometimes it gets tiring. The last week for me got kind of tiring because as much as I've tried to kind of walk the rail on what to push out there and what not to, and sometimes it just feels better to just hold back. And I look, if they're not ready to hear, I'm not here to beat them over the head with it because I've never been that. In the first place, I never really wanted to talk about these experiences with anybody else, but I understood that they weren't for me. They were examples for others. And that's why I'm willing to talk about and show pictures of the shit that's happened to me. And none of that was coincidental either. It wasn't like this long-term plan I had when I decided that I was no longer going to consult in the hospitality business, that this was the path I was going to choose. Oh, wow, let's see where spirituality will take me and what kind of stories I can come up with that. No one could craft this narrative back then. But it's still, when you're not used to it, there's a level of comfort you got to get with it. And some of the things that I finally came to terms with when Telos opened up for me to see it didn't really come into clarity until this year. Like 4 years later, I understood what the purpose of that was. And the purpose wasn't just to tell me, it was exciting for me to come back and say, yeah, the Lemurians are really there. Saw them, talk to them. They want you to know they're here. That was exciting at the time. What I didn't understand is that what we're really going through here and what we're preparing for is that the Lemurians have always been willing and looking forward to the day we're going to reintegrate. I can see on the surface where they're interested in that on the surface. But consider what's going on now with all these catastrophes. And you got to wonder whether in the last blast here, there aren't going to be some more landmass changes that there's going to be. And so there might be less places where we have lived on the surface that are even habitable. And that just leads me to the idea that, thank God, we have an awareness that there are more inner earth cities vibrating at a higher level already there. And they're just as willing to, assuming our vibration matches theirs, invite us there. It's already been said. There's going to be a hybrid of those that live on the surface and those that live, underneath. And some, different versions of that. Remember, New Earth, you don't own anything. You don't need to own anything. You have a home that you called your home, but if you decide to make your home somewhere else on the planet, you're free to do that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think it's been illusionary that you ever did own anything. Like that has been the deception that people have allowed themselves to live under in the first place. It's not like it's a change. It's like it never existed. You never really owned anything, right? You were maybe a custodian of it and you're responsible to take care of your space while you're there. But yeah, you don't own
Yes, but
anything.
look at all the systems that were built around that notion.
Oh, for sure.
banking, loans, home ownership, all that stuff that came along with it. How do you unring that bell? Because
Yeah,
nobody
it's
wants to
crazy.
lose their piece of the puzzle because we all think that we're a capitalist society and that without generating something, I could see decades ago that capitalism's unsustainable.
Oh, for
I
sure.
was investing into things and I expected a return on my investment, and you can't continue to do that without raising prices.
No,
And that you,
the
in a
expectation is
society where we get,
20% growth, 20% growth every year. That's not sustainable. I learned that a long time ago in school. And I'm like, really? Like you can just say that without knowing that there's a cost to that? Like eventually you just
and
implode.
not
Yeah.
unless, later on you get to reset and we all go back to zero and start all over again. I think you play the game all over again, but
Yeah.
it's a ridiculous idea.
No,
On
it
in
is.
places where all of people's um, basic needs are met, housing, clothing, food, food, clothing, and shelter. That's been driven into me since I was young. And those are the three things that we count on. Everything else is kind of a luxury after that. But those are the things that we need.
Yeah.
So if those things were sorted out, what would you choose to do with your life? You don't need to channel yourself through a school because we know that you have some other special gift and that we're not going to bang you over the head with English and the things other than what you need to learn to function here. But
Right.
as I see, what's happened looking back, since I was born, and what society had created, it looked like it created an assembly factory in these schools to have these little soldiers that would come on the other side and march, in different slots that you would put them in to serve, corporate interests. Nowhere in there did I really see anybody exploring themselves. And when you heard that they did, there's a hippie artist that's exactly who they were. Yeah, they didn't follow the norm. They were a little bit different. Is art interesting? Oh, yes, absolutely. But that's them.
Mhm.
That's what we're all supposed to understand and
Oh, for
develop.
sure.
We're getting there.
To dovetail together with our uniqueness, right? Um,
Yes.
absolutely. That's exactly what it is. So it is interesting to see how this plays out. I'll be honest with you, like when I started writing the book that I was dictated to write, I'll be honest with you, when I got done with it, I thought, you know what, this is really one of those esoteric books that's going to kind of sit on the shelf, kind of dusty. Because and then, maybe some years from now, somebody might say, "Oh, this is interesting, written." You've seen those really old metaphysical books, and you're like, "Oh, wow, they were talking like this so many years ago." But then what I was so surprised about was after I wrote it, and the messages to me were, no, things are going to be happening quickly. But there's this one part of the youth that says, I don't know. We've been hearing this for so long, right? You hear channelings or books written. They were written 100 years ago, and talking about this change that's coming. And I just thought, well, I don't know. We've been told this for so long that this big change is coming, But I'll have to say, so I finished it and I thought, no, there's one part of me that said, yeah, there's something happening quickly. And I did mention, to people that I would talk to that are into this, I would say that. But then on the other side, it was like, I don't know. I'm just going to put the book on the shelf and be like, I got to get on with like having a job and stuff. But then I'll be shocked. I was so shocked to find out that these major events were turning up with the UAPs and UFOs in the congressional hearings. And it was just a shock to me because everything that was dictated to me in the book was being said in these hearings. And then that's the point where, from an evidence perspective, I'm like, oh, they told it to me right when they told it to me because it was going to happen quickly. And you trust some things that you're receiving, and then other things you're like, I don't know, it's too crazy for me to trust that. But here it is. So I would say if any of us are shy or maybe fearful of kind of saying this out loud, don't. You've got to trust what you're receiving because it's happening fast. It's happening very quickly. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had to write that book in 60 days and then told, hey, promote this where you can, knowing it's still kind of falling on, well, let's face it, people's paradigms aren't into that yet. My
Right.
paradigm wasn't into that yet. It's taken me more than a year to change my paradigm. I understand. I'm empathetic to how people feel because it's difficult for me to shift. Like to your point, you had your visit and it was amazing, but how long did it take to decompress it and really absorb it? Because it's so different from what you were raised to believe or understood or ever learned.
Yes.
It takes a while to kind of get into that subconscious mind that this is a reality. It's going to take a minute, but I'll tell you what, to your point, these catastrophes get people in alignment pretty quick, don't you?
There is the evidence behind the things that we're talking about, the changes that we're suggesting. And, we oftentimes, I've been in a place where I've been through a hurricane, stayed on the island while one came through. So I understand what that's like, and I understand what it's like to be displaced from your home as a result of it. And those inconveniences, where right now it's, relatively speaking, I watched with horror what happened to Lahaina. And that was just a catastrophe caught up. Think of it as, here's this sentient ball with all these critters. Here was this catastrophe was going to play out there. And if you happen to live in the area, God love you, you know, you were going to perish. Those are hard words to say, but if you really want to get into touch with what's going on now, that is what's going on. Humans are not in charge of what's going on the planet, and their collective, sway isn't the factor that's changing things. Earth is in a cosmic cycle of her own evolution. We are all evolving, whether we think the lessons are good, bad, and different, whatever they're evolution steps for us. We're helping spirit learn more about itself through our journeys. And we take that back. And when that lesson's complete and we've mastered that, then we sign up for new ones, or we ascend to the next level. We are at a really unique cosmic historic point where we get to choose. If we came here, and the other reason why I'm so convinced that this is going to happen sooner than later, is
Soon.
that inside of me for years now, I knew that this shit was going to happen during my lifetime. And you know how old I am. The clock is ticking. Um, I'm in pretty good shape, but look at these catastrophes that are happening all the time now. And it's just one more reason to believe that sometime soon the whole earth is going to shift. There's lots of ideas and speculation about what that's going to evolve. I'm sure that given the wrong attitude, it's going to freak a lot of people out. And there's reason for it too. You can't say that there isn't going to be more catastrophe coming as we understand the term on the planet, because there's more coming. Look at what's happened: volcanoes, earthquakes, tsunamis that are result, rain patterns that are crazy, that make no sense to us scientifically, and yet they're taking place. There's other greater influences on the planet that we have not been advised of. And although I believe that from our leadership, there was a greater comprehension of what's going on. But a
Agreed.
lot of that has just been tamped down in an effort not to freak any of the rest of us out. And that has some merit. But at the same time, if you can't be transparent with the people that you represent, then where does the transparency stop? And look at the people that we have leading us now and what their interests are. It has nothing to do with you or I. And many of them treat us like we're still on the other side. And so the representative that's there to represent me doesn't really represent me. In fact, if I say some of the wrong things, he'll begin to insult me.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. But there is, I understand that they are dampening because there's nothing that they can do. What can you do
Right.
at this level of catastrophe? What can you
Yeah.
do with civilizations as advanced as they are visiting Earth? But you know what? What you could do, and this is the message, but I don't think it's the politician's job, is to develop yourself spiritually, because that it is that guides you to the place that you need to be. Not to say that everybody needs to be like bees and we're all hiving in one spot. Like, everybody come this way. No, you have your unique plan of action, and you have your place that you need to be when you need to be there. And you need to receive that message on your own. This isn't
Yes.
somebody following a guru and they're telling you what to do.
Mm-mm.
This is you listening, getting very in touch with your higher self. Like, we are going to the next level. And I say we because you feel separate from your higher self at first, because they're saying
Yes.
so foreign to you, but they're like, they're saying, come with me this direction, because we're going to the next level if you can get on board with yourself to the next level,
Yes.
right? And that's what we've been able to do. It was no accident that you went to Shasta that day. You were following your higher self's message,
Yes.
whether you realized it or not.
Quite true.
And I was listening to my higher self with things that I was doing, guided to where I needed to be. And the 60 days that I wrote my book, it was like being in heaven, that connected in with the beings from inner earth and my inner myself. And, they specifically told me, you need to cut off from society while you write this book, because the influence of that vibration compared to what life was like, it was like living in a dream world of constant opening synchronicities and high level energy. It was the most beautiful 60 days. And then I was kicked out, brought back in. I'm like, I've been doing nothing but wanting to get back ever since, which is what we should be wanting to do.
Yes.
I don't want a 5,000 square foot mansion. I don't want a Maserati. I want that feeling again all day, every day. Right? And once you know how good it can be, there's no way you'd want this lifestyle in this 3D life. It is that good. It's
Yeah.
that.
We don't know that because we were conditioned to want to be and have other things. This is a physical planet. And it wasn't when we stepped into it, the cast was already set that, you wanted to have a house, you want to have nice cars, and you want to have lots of nice clothes, and you want to have places to go and things. And
And
you
it's
kept
all that's
chasing
good.
all of
That's
that.
good for sure.
Yes.
There's nothing
Yes.
wrong with it.
Part of the reason we come into this incarnation is to enjoy those physical things. That's why we did it. However, we kind of lost sight of our metaphysical side of ourselves. So that's why we keep chasing all these things outside of ourselves, because we forgot to tend to our own flame first. And once we do that, man, we just want to return there. There are times when I'm in Santa Rosa that in between these lulls, the only thing that's on my mind is having my boots on that mountain up there. That's what brings me peace. And no one needs to be with me. And I'm fully content.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well, it's
it's
nice.
coming.
Come in. Yeah, it's coming
Yes.
soon than later, just because of the evidence of what happened after writing my book, what's going on now with all of this, and people are on board with it. They're like, yeah, no, there's definitely civilization. What did they say? 78% of the population knows that it's under the understanding that we aren't alone. But I think the disconnect is what I don't hear from hardly any of them is that of Telos. Like, that's almost like this. That's the secret portion of this. It's like, yes, the assumption is they're coming from the Pleiadians or the Andromeda or Sirius or whatever, very far away places. And it's like Occam's razor speaks to the fact that the most obvious was that they're right here,
Mhm.
right close to
They
us
are.
first.
And not to say that they weren't seeded from those places. I know
Well,
I was. When look, if I was to say out loud what I understand my progression through Earth to be now, they would think that I was some arrogant, crazy guy. But I've connected more of the dots from where I believed I had Pleiadian roots. I have an understanding of who I was there and what I came to Earth to do first. And then from there, once Elysium was established and the mantle was built out, I understood what role I played after that, which kind of walked me into Lemuria and then consequently in Atlantis and then consequently in Egypt. And man, I see the timeline and I know what roles I played here along the way and I know why. Now, that takes a lot of time to sit with. And I had along the way kind of grabbed pieces of that. The first piece, way back before I visited Shasta, was Pleiadian roots and time in Atlantis. Those were my curiosities. So they began there and then they kind of blossom into the rest of it. There is some really wonderful materials. One in particular, Judith Kusel, is a South African woman who was kind of a librarian. Think of um, oh, who was the girl in the Mummy who was the Egyptian. This is kind of who she was, and she wrote some compelling books. One that
Oh, I
left an
remember.
impression on me was Why I Was Born in Africa. And that whole timeline about what had happened then, she hit it right on the head. There is a wonderful resource for people to understand what happened to Earth in the first place, because she wasn't created. For a long time, she had been a buy station interstellarly. Whatever supplies were available on the planet here, this was kind of a way station. There was another planet within our solar system, and I want to say it was Marduk, and I don't know if that's the right name for it, but regardless, that was the planet that was going to be built out to sustain the life. It was also going to be the planet that was going to hold the Akashic records for the universe. And when it was destroyed, Earth was, like plan B. So that's when Pleiadian scientists came here because they were master botanists, and it was their job to build out the mantle. So once that was completed, here is what we would call Eden. Everything is perfect. And it was them that decided when they were finished with it, loved it so much that they petitioned the Galactic Federation to colonize here and raise families. And that was where wasn't humanity didn't kick in then because there were other interstellar help that was going to come. Here's where the Lyrians showed up. And they didn't come straight to Earth either. They lost their planet and had migrated to Sirius. But
Mm.
when Earth had finished out and there was an opportunity to colonize, they again petitioned here as well. And now here came master builders and architects that we know 24 feet high. You want to understand how we built things like we built them? There's the reason why. And if you really understood the technologies that they used and why sacred geometry and understanding what light principles and prima matra is, when you understand all those things, you will understand how the pyramids were built the way that they were built. Because we did not chop up those bricks
No.
and those stones. Where in the world did you get all that to begin with? That came from elsewhere and was light product. What made sense of all this for me is when you've seen these diagrams of the king's chamber in the Great Pyramid, and you wonder how those 700-ton stones got into those positions. Well, that was because the technology of the day and the people that were in there, Toth and his um, priests that were re-engineering those pyramids, because they had been there before, they were being re-engineered, um, did so by placing this prima matra fabric because it was light material. Didn't come from Earth, came from elsewhere. And so when they discerned, what the geometric, qualities needed to be, they put this material in there and then it was changed into matter.
Yeah.
Basalt and granite is that material. And that's why you see it everywhere. That's why you see it in these behemoths. That didn't start out to be big stones that somebody chopped up and cut up. They understood how to build things.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That's just like Jesus talking about turning water to wine. That these are all very chemical scientific elements. And
Yes.
the higher your consciousness, the more you can manipulate it to your benefit.
Alchemy is something that we learn early if we pay attention to it. We just turned off that. Again, that's part of our metaphysical side of ourselves. That's a skill that people can. You have it inherently if you decide that you want to enhance it, but most people don't realize they have it and don't realize that they can change things.
No, our development in humanity has been arrested. It's been arrested development.
Yes,
Been,
yes.
and it's all in the mind. It's all in belief. And so you believe only what you think is possible. Anything is possible. And that's just and then a lot of times, so in making my way to Telos, it's interesting. I had a because and we all have this, don't we? We have this little voice that might say something to us. And depending on our awareness, it's all awareness. We either ignore it or we might go down that rabbit hole and look into it. And a little voice said the word Shambhala, and I'd never heard the word Shambhala. So I looked it up and wow, it's a utopian kingdom. And some people said it was mythical and some people said it was real. And I said, well, whether it's mythical or real, I'll put it in my affirmations. I'm so happy and grateful now that I've been guided to Shambhala. What the hell? I've been told if you say something enough and you write it down enough, it has to come true. So you play chicken with the universe with whatever. Why ask for, I'm going to ask for a Maserati and Shambhala. Why not ask for it all? It takes just as much effort to create Shambhala as it does a Maserati or a button. So I did it for a year and a half. And I'll be darned if Telos didn't come out from a year and a half of every day writing it into my affirmations. Not only wanting it for myself, but wanting it for everyone else. So think about if we all just said, so after that happened, I said, well, I'm going to keep writing it down, because I don't know, I'm on the way, but I don't feel like I'm there yet. So I got to keep it up. Imagine if a group of us all together collectively said, I am so happy and grateful now that I've been guided to Shambhala or I've been guided to Telos. What do you think the power of that would be? It's all belief. It's
You know
all
what?
mental.
Um, Dave last week pressed me because there's something in him that's pushing him for a day at the end of the month when we want to do a collective meditation. And what you
There you
just
go.
suggested was a
Yes.
wonderful affirmation to use for that purpose. When we were talking about the logistics of it, because I thought he wanted to do it all at the same time. Well, I think in terms of time zones, and you can't accomplish that with the people that are in our tribe,
Yeah.
because that means that somebody's going to be up in the middle of the night if they're in Slovakia or they're in South Africa or they're in Australia or they're in, New Orleans. Uh, and he said, no, no, we don't have to worry about that. Just let them make an intention to do it on this day, and the collective energy will pick up enough. And he's right. But I think that you came up with a wonderful way to talk about it, to articulate it, because it's not going to be long. I mean, we're talking about getting, together for like 15 minutes and doing a promo like this, and then just letting it out there and just let the tide carry that out on the prescribed day, and we'll see what comes of it. But it can't
Yeah.
hurt. I understand what collective energy is like in a meditative group.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Everybody get together. Like I said, I didn't, I put it on the universe to figure that one out. and I'll be darned if it didn't come back as something called Telos. Again, I'd never heard of Telos, but Shambhala is in inner earth and is connected to Telos, right?
That's right.
I mean, it's just shocking to me that it worked, you know? And then I manifested it, even though it was by accident. And then you manifested it more unconsciously. I guess I did it kind of consciously, but maybe lacking belief, you know? But you did it entirely unconsciously. So either way, people are going to come to the same place. But if you could do it consciously, like then at least you can kind of connect the dots, maybe.
You know,
I think it's a good idea.
as we have these conversations, it's just there's just more things, even in my 3D side, that are there's reason to it. If you think about the surface and all the cities and countries that are on the surface, it shouldn't be that hard to really understand that there's 120 cities within inner Earth.
Oh, sure.
120. That's it. It's not hard to understand it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I believe with the dreams that I've had that we are, just like, because I look at the Telos, I look at the story, the information uh, by Shrula Dux, and then also what has been written by Diane Robbins, also with the Swedish lady. I don't know, with this poor woman, we keep calling her the Swedish lady. I don't know her last name.
I'll have to, she's no longer alive,
Oh,
but I'll
she's
have to
not.
figure it out, how to pronounce her name because as there's Swedish blood in me, I should be able to do
Oh,
this.
I know how to pronounce it because I'm in more of the depths of the Scandinavian part of the country. Yeah, I do know how to say it, but I don't have the book with me. So anyway, nonetheless, based on the information told, you know, they on the surface were experiencing huge cataclysms. And I think they were trying to, just like they're asking us to convey, right? They were trying to convey. And then I remember, is it Sharula Dux or Diane Robbins had said they didn't really believe it was going to happen. They didn't really believe it was going to happen. And so they couldn't convince people to go to inner earth. But then once they decided that they were going to be separate from the rest of the people in inner earth because they needed some peace after the cataclysms, and they wanted to sequester in to develop their own culture to ensure that they
Correct.
right.
That's the more
We're
important
going to
part
do this.
is that sequestering was to turn off all the negativity on the surface and to
Yeah, but also to
see how
sequester
it would
from
evolve
other
there.
yeah, and then also from the
Yes.
other inner earth people. I think that's why they wanted to
Yeah.
be in the until they could
There's
kind of
still some animosities between them and some of the Atlanteans, and I'm sure you can
really
understand why.
sure.
And we talk about just those two civilizations, which I don't want to forget about. When we talk about Lemuria and all this week, I've been spending time in these other areas, that there's still lots of Atlantean presence here. And we shouldn't discount any of that because they were a wonderful technology society as well. Did they go sideways? Absolutely. Here's, demonstration. Are they the ones that are primarily responsible? In my mind, yes, they are.
Mhm.
And look at the circumstances we're going through now. The
Yeah,
potential for nuclear weapons to be discharged again. This is the reason they got involved in the last time. That they
right.
weren't going to, they weren't allowed to intercede in humanity's affairs on Earth because they were left to their own evolution until in the 40s, we dropped the bomb in Japan and showed what we could do to the rest of the society. And we looked at that. We're doing these nuclear tests out in the Nevada test desert, and had no idea what the hell we were doing, and grinned when the military had some command over what we thought of over these things. We didn't know what we were doing, and
Mhm.
so now it looks like we're damn close to repeating that all over again
Yeah.
and things are stepping in to prevent that.
Oh, for sure. That's not going to happen. I don't see that at all. And then in the Admiral Byrd material, when his plane was brought into inner Earth and he had visitation with the Arianis, they said as soon as you decided to use that technology and that energy for destruction instead of to help humanity, that's when you as a society kind of decided that not all of you would be going forward. You know?
Yes.
And then there's
Yes.
the gestational time that it takes from that decision that we made consciously, subconsciously, to now. This is that gestation period where this is the same thing that was experienced with Lemuria, right? Like the cataclysms, the earthquakes,
Yes.
the floods, the fires, the so you it was warned of it, we were warned of it and told there will be those of you that will see the futility in war, and we will be there to help you at that time.
Hmm.
And then the treasures that you've created will be saved. And then, well, we know what happened to the Lemurians and the Atlanteans that I guess didn't see the futility in war. And unfortunately, you know, we're still evidence of that, unfortunately. Yeah,
Well,
unfortunately, we're the remnants maybe of that.
we look at the physical casualties of all that and tend to forget that we're still spirits in avatars that came here to play out a human experiment. The experiment's over. Earth is no longer a 3D testing ground, and she's moving into her fourth dimensional aspect. In fact, the good news is she's already there. That's why we see it. That's why we can experience it. She's already there. It's just a amount of time where I see her like a bubble going through a membrane, and she's not quite 50% through yet. But as soon as she hits 51% through, all of her is in this new higher frequency and density, and nothing that was in a lower frequency can penetrate through that membrane is how I see it. It's like they drop off. So the idea when it was suggested that everything entropy is there makes perfect sense to me. Now, does that sound catastrophic? It does if I just consider myself and this body is going to be gone after this. This was an avatar that we chose to ride in this particular experiment. And when we recycle the next time, we're at a different level if we chose to stay on newer Earth. If you love 3D lessons, bless your heart. There'll be other places apparently in the galaxy where they can be played out, but New Earth doesn't vibrate at that level anymore. And
No.
that's where we're going.
Yeah. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, that's the comfort I get out of this when all the rest of this crap is going on. It might not be perfect today, and if you listen to what the media is serving up for us today, it can tend to get you triggered. And you have to see it from that perspective that you know why it's being told this way. Stop paying attention to all those polls that tell you this or that. And I'm not just talking about politics, there's a variety of things. Man, uh, here would be a great stage comedy play for me is to just open up, my Apple News and just take you through all the headlines and point out what the hell is this really about and what are you paying your attention to. Here would be the way to really get people's attention. Are you triggered by this? And if you are, why?
I don't know. I'm
I don't know
excited
either.
what's happening. It is, but it's yeah. And then there's just the development that still I guess I'm still going through. I'm still developing and evolving. That doesn't end. I'm still
That
learning my lessons, and I'm
there's
happy
a
to,
part of me that is marveled by what I'm going through. It goes, you signed up for this?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then there's the other side of me that's the 3D side going, you signed up for this?
Yeah.
No, depending on, what my reflex instinct is. Sometimes it can be very 3D. I see things and I want to swear and call them out for what they are, and then my higher perspective goes, "Oh, hold on, there's a lesson being played out that you know nothing about." And all you can do is just send the love and light and hope it comes out, the way that it's supposed to come out. But if I interfere in it, we know what lessons are. I understand better what trials are. And that's when I insert myself into somebody else's business without their um, without them asking for it. I have just created a karmic cord where one was not necessary. I had no business getting involved in any of that, and expressing my that sense. So, as often as I remind myself of that, you have to remove yourself from what everybody else is going through. We have no idea what lessons they signed up for and what their soul contract was here to learn. All I know for certain is that in the end, whatever karmic experiences they have, that they contribute to the collective later on, I didn't have to learn. They learned on our behalf. And in the same way, I'm going through the same things. Thank God they weren't all supposed to be the same. The human experience was supposed to be very individual. It wasn't supposed to be modeled like we were soldiers coming off an assembly line. It wasn't supposed to be that. And so once we can get past the idea that we are not in control of our lives here and that somebody else is really driving the ship, that is not true. You just have to stop letting someone convince you that they think that they're in charge of your life. And man, there's upheavals going on all over the planet when you watch these people fighting back. I don't want to say fighting back, but I can't think of a better term for it than that. Um, a handful of individuals who want things done their way. Who should say what books I can and cannot read? It's not for you to say. So when I hear that there are states within the United States that are dictating what you can and can't see, I mean, didn't we overcome this a couple decades ago?
Oh yeah, this is old
And
news.
yet here we
Yeah.
are playing it out again, like this is something new and we should all comply. Yeah, well, no one's going to tell me what to comply with because it doesn't, what you're telling me doesn't speak unity, love, compassion. It doesn't speak those things to me. It speaks that you want a pound of flesh from your opponent and you'll choose anything to make somebody else an opponent because you're just angry and you want to get it. Yeah. I have no solutions for how to stop people from being angry over those circumstances because that's been coming for a long time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's nothing. And like you said, they're getting rid of books. Like there's a lot of really old things that we thought we were done with, we'd evolved out of that are trying to kind of rear their ugly head again. And I wonder if it isn't just, it's one of those things, like when a star goes supernova, right before it turns into a white dwarf, right before it kind of dies, it goes supernova, doesn't it? It starts just blazing with fire and it starts to explode. And I wonder if it's not burning off some of those things that we hadn't completely resolved within ourselves, but we thought they were done. And they start showing they start showing themselves, but right before they burn and die. That's what I feel like. Right before
That
they
feels
die.
like chaos clearing to me.
Yeah, it's chaos clearing. It is because this all was resolved way back, right? 50s and 60s and 70s. And now it's emerging and you're like, where is this coming from again?
Well, because
Because there's those of us that remember those
yeah,
days.
the entities on the other side that want to control you are the ones that are trying, they'll throw anything against the wall to see what'll stick and get
See what
your ire
happens.
up. And
Yeah.
then we're just going to keep digging it in until you see things my way. And I'm even willing to cause or watch violence. And that's the number one thing that, in my mind, our representatives have become too complacent with. That
Yeah.
they think that it's okay for one individual to harm another. None of that makes any sense to me.
No, no, it's
And if
insanity.
that's your position, then you have no business being in charge of anybody else.
It's insanity. It's insanity. And I
Yes.
think it's just burning itself out. And this is what when I look at myself from an unconscious perspective, the one thing that I've been able to do is focus on a particular goal. And with that, when I have that particular goal in mind, something that I believe in, you have some goals like, oh, I'm going to lose 10 pounds and then you eat a chocolate cake. There's those, but the goals that are really important to me, I'll have to say the best thing that I can do is anything that tends to throw itself up to throw me off. I just ignore. Like somebody says something to me, I'm like, okay, I kind of align with, is that going to get me to my, if responding to this, is this going to get me to my goal or is it going to take me away from my goal? And if it doesn't take me to my goal, no matter how horrible somebody says something or scary, I won't address it. I just ignore it and move
Good.
away from it because I have this goal in mind. And I'll have to say this whole goal to make it to inner earth, to be in alignment when I need to be in alignment, that is such a strong force in me now that I feel like I don't even see some of these shenanigans. I think I'm almost, if I do hear it, it's just like, yeah, but it's not part of my goal. I know if I attach to it, it's going to dissuade me from where I want to be. And it just doesn't register within me. It just doesn't. But I have a
I
goal.
understand what you're
And I
saying.
think if everybody had a goal that was important to them, they would be in alignment with what they needed to do to get there.
Yeah. You can be assured that there is justice being played out on higher levels than what we're aware of. That when you see all of these things melt down, they're melting down from the inside out. These institutions are melting down from the inside out.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll say this out loud once, just to make this reference to politics. The Republican Party is tearing itself apart from the inside,
Mhm.
and you can see the two factions. It's almost like there's a light and there's a dark faction on the inside fighting with one another. There are those that are pissed off and still want a freaking pound of flesh from somebody, and there are those that see beyond it and go, no, no, no. There's higher things at purpose here, and that's where I have great comfort that that small minority that wants their piece of flesh from someone else for things that they've lived to for so long, that that's still a small perspective,
Oh,
and
oh,
that the vast majority of us understand we're connected to something higher than ourselves, but that's not what plays out in the media.
yeah. No, no, the media has to sell things. So they're going to play out what sells, right?
Correct correct
So,
Their marketing's either ideas to you or things that you have to have. And you pick something. You can go through pharmaceuticals and the whole idea behind that. Are they really curing anybody, or are they just masking things and making crazy profits? Just we won't get started on that. It's just another phenomenon when your body just finds good health. I tune all that out now. I don't worry about healthcare expenses and what doctors say I'm supposed to do, because I haven't seen a doctor since December of 2015. I have no reason to. No, no. And somehow my body has crafted itself into what it's supposed to be. When I finally removed myself from an environment where I felt like I had a safety cushion, I was working for a company that provided really good health benefits. I remember how many times I ever used them. Yeah, I didn't. So a lot of money was being spent on things that I had no use for. And then when my awareness really kicked in, somewhere at the beginning of it, 35 pounds went somewhere else. And my mind got sharper, and just I felt physical changes that I had no understanding for outside of the idea of, health and exercise, which didn't get me to this place. It wasn't that I said I'm going to stop eating this and feel better and have an exercise regime. None of that played into the result. And yeah, here I am at my age feeling like I was in my early 20s again. Um, that's why I crave being in Mount Shasta, because I would already be up on the mountain by this time if I needed nothing else. There's just that kind of palpable, really wonderful energy to go experience when you can tune everything else out. And it's hard to think that you can find that when there's so much crap going on in the world that you still wouldn't be affected by it. But when I pull over and look out at the mountains, those are not any of the thoughts that find their way into my
mm, very nice.
head. Well, holy cow, it's been 90 minutes already.
Wow. Well, good conversation.
Yes,
We're
thank you.
making our way. It's exciting. Oh, I found the name of that Swedish lady. It's Mariana Stjärna. Stjärna.
Got it. Oh, I can see the words in my head. I was just too lazy to pronounce them out.
Yeah, it's S
But
T
thank
J
you.
E R N A. Stjärna.
Yes. Yeah. Her book was amazing.
It was wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah, I like it.
I still, when I find commonalities, and I don't know who else is doing this kind of, level of research on Lemuria and Atlantis and that. But when you find Diane's books, and then you find her books, and you find Ramu Cinemar's, and then you find the stuff that you've written, look, there are too many similarities in what all these people are bringing forward. Did they all have the same dream? Yeah, maybe. Maybe that's one way to look at it. But it's no coincidence that these things aren't coming to the surface now.
Oh, for sure. And, just like we all made this collective agreement to make this 3D reality, like there, we made some collective agreement together. There's those of us that made a collective agreement for a new world. We wanted it so
Yes.
bad. Why not we come together and create this new world together? And
There was a long time
that's all
I
that this one is.
wondered whether I was a Blu-ray and whether I was part of that initiative that came to change Earth because you had to be incarnated into it to actually make the difference. You couldn't really, although we have higher influence helping us all the time, that's not where it was going to come from. So, that soul has got to incarnate here and be on this side. When I really put the timeline together on when it appeared to me when external assistance began to manifest here, where there was kind of a galactic rule. There's no interfering in humanity. They must learn their lessons on their own. And well, that was kind of the way Earth's model went. And then when we dropped the bombs during World War II, was when we started to see that influence change. And those of us that had made that decision to assist in incarnations on this side, yeah, we were starting to be born shortly after that.
Yeah.
1954 certainly talks about, what had happened 9 years before that and those souls that were going to come to assist. Because Earth, by then, it was still no secret. She's going through her cosmic cycle. It might sound like a long time to us, but 1,000 years here is nothing to any of them.
Yeah.
And that's why it seems like when we talk things about phenomena that's going to happen here beyond years, that's just too far for us humans to wrap our minds around. But
Yeah.
knowing that the Lemurians that were here when it went down, they're still here.
Yeah, they're still here because
Yes.
they lived that long. And even when they were here, they lived long lives, didn't they? They
Yes.
had
Yes, they
figured
did.
out I don't know why we didn't get that far. We didn't get that far with our development, obviously.
We stopped our metaphysical development and stopped seeing beyond that. In our minds, we had this life, we died, and then, we mourned that.
Yeah.
Like it was lost forever. And we didn't understand this whole experiment, this 3D experiment here. We didn't understand that.
Yeah.
We had a different idea. We lost the idea that we're a soul that was a spark of source. And we're here to help it evolve, learn more about itself. Here's the soul contract I have for this incarnation. Here are my lessons I'm going to learn. And when I've mastered those and the collective benefits from my contributions to the Akash, I either sign up for new lessons and I do this all over again. But this has changed. I
Yeah.
didn't finish. When I'm done with this incarnation, I am not done. I can tell you where I came from long ago, and future versions of myself, as silly as that sounds, all of it makes perfect sense.
Oh,
And
for sure.
I hope that people can just open their minds up enough to start to explore those things for themselves. And I'm pretty certain that they'll find that they'll have a lot of those things in common as well. We just weren't told about those things. And there's certainly no history books that reflect any of that. So, when I came across Shirula Duck's stuff, and even when it was brought to my attention recently, that wasn't the first time it had been brought to my attention, and it kind of fell on my deaf ears. I didn't know enough about what I didn't know enough about then. And I took for granted the last Lemurian who claims to have lived on the surface and left some information behind for us. So, of course, someone who is always seeking the next bit of information about inner Earth, Lemuria, or Telos, or whatever it is, I'm waiting for it. And so when it began to come through me, I didn't understand it at first. And then when I understood as I was talking about these things and other people were triggered by them, well, wait, maybe it was for me to start to bring these things through. Maybe it was for me to tell you about Telos and Lemurians. Maybe it was for me to expand upon the fact that that's not the only inner Earth thing. And maybe it was up to me to explain why all of this is coming into our awareness now because of the cosmic shift that's taking place and the places in inner Earth that will welcome us when that shift begins to happen. And all we're trying to help people with is to find whatever that vibration is for you to rise to it. So when we get to that place, you walk into that environment like you were meant to be there because your vibration already matches that. That's all I can help people with. Can't tell you how to get there. I can't tell you what your journey is because it's different. All I can do is send you with love and light and help you along the way with whatever resources I have. It's wonderful for me when I hear commonalities between parts of my journey and parts of the other tribe's journey. It just makes it feel as though I'm not in this alone. I
Yeah.
know that these changes are happening, and God, I wish everybody had an awareness of it. I want that for my family first, and they're not there.
No, I mean, no, they're not there. But I think they will be because, like I said, um, when a shitstorm happens, suddenly you become very clear what needs to happen. You need to, you know what I mean? You can be kind of lazy with your thinking when things aren't really uh pressing on you. It's like then you can follow your own old paradigm and you can be lazy and listen to what's on the news and say it's true because you're not going, you're not discerning to within yourself to say is this true or not. You're like, yeah, but I got to get up and go to my job at 8 o'clock in the morning. What am I gonna do with that information? Because I got to pay the bills this week. And you know, it's totally understandable. But when things get pressing, like unfortunately, this whole Maui thing, they get clear very quick that they got to get out of the house. They're not thinking about their 8 o'clock job in the morning. They're
Yes.
not thinking about paying the bills. They're thinking, my house is on fire personally, physically, or metaphysically, and I need to move out of where I'm at and go someplace new, And then
Here's where that whole
weird what you can believe in and what you don't have to believe in anymore.
those sentient critters on the planet, that's when that idea kicks into my head. And that, we're just like ants crawling on the surface. And when if you're in the way of the catastrophe, you're in the way of the catastrophe. There,
Yeah.
no one intended for that to happen. You were just in the wrong place at the wrong time, but it's going to happen with 8 billion of us on the planet.
Yeah.
As these phenomenon happen in places where they haven't happened before, how do you prepare for that? When I read through the media's accounts of why the sirens didn't go off, the first thing that comes into my head is what difference would it have made? Now you just created more chaos because you hear these sirens going off, and now that's just added to the anxiety.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me. The same thing last year. I was here during an earthquake that was 3.4 kilometers away from me. No, there's nothing's happened like that in Santa Rosa for I can't tell you how long. They make references to the 1906 thing in San Francisco as the last time something's happened like that. But I was here at the kids' townhouse, felt the room move.
Hmm.
And Alex came down from upstairs, and all of a sudden I saw an alert that came out on my phone about earthquake detection. And later, um, one of our supervisors, our counter supervisors, was applauding, the fact that the system worked so well. And I'm thinking, what was it going to do? It came
Yeah.
after it. Yes, the alert came on, but the shaking had already taken place. If it had been more devastating, who freaking cares whether I got an alert on my phone when this happened?
Yeah.
And then Hawaii was really a good example of what's really going to take place when the power really goes out. When we rely on internet, like I can call 911, I can get some help. When the infrastructure is gone, your phone is worthless. Other than the pictures it carries on it, it's worthless because it no longer can communicate. That doesn't exist. Wait till power grids go out on a greater level than that, and then our communication is lost. And why wait till you want to see what chaos comes out of that?
Right.
We're not done.
No, we're not done. All the more reason to develop yourself. And so when those moments come, what do you know? A week before, you'll find yourself, I think I'm going to go on vacation to XYZ. You'll find yourself not there. Or if you are there, you'll find out exactly what you need to do and how to do it. Right. And
Messages come in lots of ways. And
they do.
one was, I'm trying to remember, is it Lisa Woodward that moved to Hawaii? She's one of
Mhm.
the tribe. Yeah, Lisa.
Yeah.
And a few days after Lahaina, I had reached out and just said, are you okay? Were you affected by it at all? Well, she didn't live on that island, but in fact, she hadn't spent any time on social media for like a week. So she was clueless about what had happened. So when I reported what had taken place, she said, "Oh my God, you were supposed to tell me that because this weekend we were planning to go there
Yeah.
and had no idea what had taken place."
There you go. It can come
Yeah.
from any source it needs to, but be in the awareness.
Yes.
Be in the awareness and then feel inside like, is this for me? And I'm telling you, it's your internal guidance system that is you're born with as part of your right as a being, and we've turned it off. We've turned it off.
Yes, we did. But, lots of us understand that it's clicked in now and we're just trying to, tune it in.
Tune it in.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's wonderful. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'll find myself, I'm feeling those musings to maybe explore that area. We'll see what I'm got into next. I'm excited, but it's been great talking to you today. And
Sooner or later. All right,
yes,
kid.
all
We
right.
should let's call this a day and I'll talk to you again soon. Okay?
Okay, take care.
And
Bye.
yeah.